Adam in Nashville, Tennessee, please save me.
How are you doing today?
I'm kidding. This is not Matt Slick.
Aww.
I'm sorry.
Are you sure?
Maybe. You never know. Matt Slick is omnipresent.
If you don't have Jesus, how can you know that you're not Matt Slick?
Well, how do I even know morals exist? I don't really know much of anything. How do I know their minds exist? But I did have a big question when it comes to, I think it all relates to the principle of charity and debate. Have you ever heard of the principle of charity and debate?
What are we?
I have not.
What are we talking about? Or is it just you wanted to talk about the principle of charity and debate?
And so the principle of charity would say if somebody kind of lays out their argument for you in debate, you should take it in the most charitable sense. You shouldn't, try to straw man it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I've seen comments like even from mods in chats on the Atheist Experience saying things like, I'm going to die now. And I think when we look at context, and I really believe it matters, and I really hate this whole movement to destroy context. You can look at the guy with his dog. I don't like what was being said, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
When you say the guy with his dog, what are you referring to?
Yeah.
I'm talking to, what is his name? Lord, do you know the gentleman who had his dog doing all kinds of crazy things?
No.
Oh, it's, I'm sure a lot of the viewers probably know. It's the guy who took his girlfriend's dog and had to do crazy.
Oh, the Hitler thing, the Nazi salute that he taught his dog to do the Nazi Sieg Heil thing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's not fair to the dog. It can't really, form any other symbol with its paw.
If context matters, it's a dog. And then if you look at the guy who's just doing, I think it's offensive. I'm Jewish.
I don't think it is very good.
I don't think it should be illegal. And then one of the reporters went up to him and said, which I will not say what he was making the dog say, and he said to him, how dare you make your dog say these things? You realize what you made your dog say? And the guy said back to the reporter, you just said it. If context doesn't matter, you've just committed a crime. Because the reporter said to him what he was saying to the dog. So context doesn't matter. The reporter can't even say. Does that make sense? Like, if there is no context, then what the reporter said is a crime.
I understand what you're saying. On that front, basically what you're describing is what people talk about as blasphemy, right? And so that's that's the premise for it's precisely the same thinking behind blasphemy laws, but particularly blasphemous speech. It's the premise behind the Monty Python skit from The Life of Brian, where they're stoning the blasphemer. And it's like, all right, no one's to stone anyone until I blow this whistle, even if they do say Jehovah. And it's like, then they're throwing rocks at him and all this. Yeah, it's precisely the same thing. Actually, that actually happened in Iran, I think 3 years ago maybe. There was someone who at a wedding received a pair of shoes as a gift, and it was near a Quran. And so that, having shoes near the Quran, something like that, something about shoes, was considered blasphemous. And then there was footage of it that was broadcast, and that's why they were going to get arrested or in trouble. And then the news, and so there was they're going to get arrested for blasphemy. And then the news reported it and showed the footage. And so the news station was then going to be charged with blasphemy. And it's like, if you can't say the crime, it's a whole thing. But
I think
to be clear, when you're talking about the movement to destroy context, I'm not sure that there is one.
I don't either.
I think everything being said, when someone says something and doesn't mean it in a hateful way, this is why I bring it back to the principle of charity. When someone says that was stupid or something like that, they mean I didn't fully think that out or something. Mm-hmm. And so when we destroy the context with all the intent, and when we say context, intent doesn't matter, and we start to see, because I've seen this all online in online communities where people just get destroyed by saying one word that obviously the person, because, when it was a mod who said it, I'm going to die or something, and, a lot of us have dealt with depression and hard times and stuff like that, especially, it's just something you don't expect to hear. And so I understand the context. I understand their context when they're overwhelmed with things, when the show's going awry. And so when they say that, I know there's context to it. And I understand the context, and I acknowledge the context, and they're not just saying something morbid. But when I think everyone deserves that principle of charity I was mentioning at the start of this, to be like, okay, this is why they're saying this. This is what they mean. I'm not going to go after them. And I fear too often people hear one word and just create the witch hunt that you were talking about. Now I've blasphemed witches.
Let me push back a little bit because I kind of want to explore this idea. So if I go back to the guy who was teaching his dog to do the Nazi thing, right? If I were being charitable,
to see this video now.
If I were being charitable, what
whatever
charitable explanation would put this in a good light?
Yeah, for that specific example.
That specific argument, or that specific action.
So to be charitable towards him, I would say he's doing explicit shock humor. I would also say, other than saying something really disgusting, which at least I believe you can say disgusting things in a free society. You can't threaten people, but...
well, we're not talking about the principles of the society as much as we're talking about the charitable, interpretation of his action.
I would say he was doing shock humor. Like he was juxtaposing a very cute animal with horrific stuff. So he was doing shock humor for his audience. And so I think... that was the intent, and that's what I would give him for the, I think it's disgusting. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to think it's disgusting.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I think that we need to be able to make decisions about the world that we're in. And we can be wrong, and we need to be open to being wrong every time. And that's something that I'm always going to promote, right?
He's going to promote being wrong. Be wrong as much as you can.
Being willing to admit when you're wrong and seeing when you're wrong and addressing it. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
With that said, you're going to derail me and I'm going to be real upset. So,
as always, you can do it. Sorry. All right.
I lost it.
Go ahead.
Eric lost his train.
We can be wrong. So I mean, I think
it's important to be able to admit when you're wrong. As far as humor, I haven't seen the video, so I don't know. When you were describing it, I assumed that he was doing it to make that specific point.
No. It juxtapose a cute animal with... He basically said, I'm going to take my girlfriend's really cute dog and turn him into the worst thing I can think, which acknowledges...
Ooh, I remember.
Wait, was this revenge?
Okay. Yeah. So, no.
No, he was doing it funny.
For the lulz.
This dog, you love it so much.
Yeah,
okay.
He wanted to do it for the lulz.
There's a South Park episode.
So what I wanted to say was, I had people that I knew who were white people who really loved dropping the N-word for shock value. They thought it was fucking hilarious, right? No, but they did, and it wasn't I should, try and contextualize. No, it was just I want to shock you with my language, and so I'm going to use whatever language I can. I didn't say you can't say that, but what I did say is I don't need to be in the room with you if you are. Right?
I've said because to people too who make stuff like that.
And so the charitable thing, while I absolutely agree, I think that we do need to make decisions, and that's why I was talking about us being wrong. It's totally okay to be wrong, but we do need to make decisions every day about the kinds of things that we do. And at a blush, I would say, that's pretty fucked up. I mean, upon further investigation, I'm absolutely open to be able to talk about the nuance and everything like that. But at a blush, looking at it, I wouldn't remove his language, but I'm not gonna. I don't know.
Also, I'm not sure to what degree the principle of charity comes in there, because my understanding, even before the call, was that the principle of charity is to not interpret their words with the most harsh meaning of them, right? So, for example, when I talk to people about politics, they'll say all of these people, referring to a generally described constituency or a political party, are like this, or all such and such are, whatever. They'll say that they're mentally disturbed or something. To interpret that as saying, okay, so you believe literally anyone that would say, I'm a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Texan, whatever, is sort of to not very charitable in the debate. But the example that you gave of a person trying to be, releasing what they intended to be a humorous video with, whatever it is, Hitler dog. I'm not sure to what degree you're talking about people being too sensitive to humor and overreacting to it as a point.
I think to give that
to what
context,
degree you're trying to.
When we go too far, like I think he's just an example of free speech in context. But I think I saw John Iacoletti post on the Freethought blogs that words such as stupid, I'll just use that one word for now, will be viewed as bad as racial slurs. Like I think there's this idea that 30 years from now, stupid will be as bad as racial slurs. And I really think just in the modern society context of, where the way we use, like, I just wasn't thinking, and is that a horrible thing to say I wasn't thinking? I mean, I think at some point we go too far. And here's the thing, if somebody said to me, that offended me, I prefer you not say that, I would do that. And I think we all have different ways we interact with people. And I think we should be open to people and tell them what we think and how we feel about what they said. But I think pushing people out now, we're really becoming this.
When you say pushing people out, what do you mean?
I've seen people just ostracized for. One of my biggest things is I'm a feminist, and I can explain how the wage gap impacts women, but then when I see people come into a chat and they say there is no wage gap, and then they just get thrown out, and that does nothing but ostracize them. You can't then go to them and say, here's the studies in the nursing industry, here's across other industries, here's the gap, and here's what we see, and here's the numbers, and you just show them the research. Rather than just quoting a statistic or something like that, you give them the real research, and you say, well, here, look at this. And that's how you hold people in. But when someone shows a contrary view a lot of times, I think they get thrown out of the community. And I've seen that just multiple times on multiple boards and multiple forums where someone says something that kind of goes against the grain, and then they're just tossed out.
Well, I think that the discourse is pushed forward by the bumping of heads. I think just like when we're talking about atheism, and I think that for every Anthony Magnabosco that is effective, you have the scathing atheist people who are just in your face, and I think that it takes
who are also
an
effective
entire
with their method.
It takes the entire community and different approaches, because I don't think people change their minds from what they see on TV. They change their minds from what they hear in their living rooms. It's the conversations they have with the people that they know that largely impact the way that they interact with others in the real world. And so while the analog that I want to take it to is gay rights, right? So for me, in the 90s, it was totally okay to make really effeminate gay jokes. And there was a game when I was in elementary school. It was called Smear the Queer.
Yeah.
Adam, it was terrible.
I can't believe we played that.
We did, though, and it's fucked up. It is super fucked up.
I hated that game because I was really bad at tackling people.
But the thing is we do need to have, I think that if you're going to talk about charity, and if you're going to talk about discussion, there also needs to be a place for redemption, because we deserve redemption ourselves, right? I played that game and I had no idea what that was. But as I grew older, I think you're absolutely right. We look back at that, and we have the benefit of time to look back at that and see what was right and what was wrong. But the discourse itself, I think, was pushed forward by the people who went too far on both sides. I think that there's danger in it, but I think that the more I see it, the more people will become accustomed, the more conversations that they'll have, and maybe, hopefully soon, the less controversial it'll be.
So, to be clear, Eric, when you're saying people that went too far on both sides, I mean, are you trying to refer to not booting people for saying things that are absolutely horrendous? Because Adam was just bringing up people that express dissent on a message board, which doesn't necessarily need to be no illusions level of
I was thinking,
diatribe. It just needs to be like, well, actually, I think it's better that women are paid less because blur.
Well, I was actually thinking about
I shouldn't say, oh, it's not something that's horrendous to say, and then say something that's horrendous to say.
Yeah, so I was thinking in the extremes, if you take a look at feminism, and as a feminist, I really do care.
You're calling feminism extreme? We're about to get...
Will you, if you let me get to it, then I can actually do it. So, as a feminist, I do take a look, and I see on one side the incel type groups that want to do horrendous things, and I don't think those people should be allowed in civil discourse. Am I going to jail them? No, but I'm not going to be in the room while they're talking, because fuck those guys. And on the other end, you have people who think that, well, you know, all men should be jailed and just used for procreation. I've seen literature that is just fucking wild, and I feel that way about that too. There are extremes, and those extremes help us draw those lines and go, okay, where do I really stand here? And you can, I mean, I think there's a need, and I think that you should be able to, especially if it's in a private community, make those calls. I mean, I really don't want to give a platform to terrible human beings, no matter who you are.
I want to expand on one thing. I'll let you guys go, and thank you so much for your time. But what you said about there being extremes, I think that's where the middle ground needs to always be open to discussion, because once the middle ground closes discussion, people go to those extremes. You see people like, well, I guess I'm just going to pick a side. Like, you have to pick Marvel or DC. You could be like, I kind of like both. I mean,
all right, Adam, Marvel or DC?
Now, but at least the comics are good.
Marvel or DC?
Yeah.
Marvel movies, definitely. I mean, come on. They're killing it.
Marvel comics as well.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the talk.
Yeah. Thank you for calling in.
All right. Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.
See you. I think that towards the end of that, you ended up coming to a conclusion that was contrary to generally his thesis.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Help me through it, because
what you were talking about is I don't want to be in the same room with, and mentioned not wanting to, the phrase you used was give a platform to terrible people. And so what I think the two of you came to without saying it explicitly is that there's a limit to how extreme a person that you disagree with can be before you
cut off the conversation.
Yeah, cut off the conversation. And I think the point that he was trying to get to, or that he was trying to get to at the start of the conversation was he's seen it happen too quickly. But we didn't. But we didn't get there.
Well, I feel like I fucked up then.
No, you're fine.
You know what? I'm going to think on it, because I think that is a nuanced view that I don't have, because I haven't given it enough time. So. I mean,
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, actually, with your view, because presumably, like, you're not, authoritarian and you're like, oh, okay, I will never listen or speak to anyone that disagrees with me.
Yeah.
You do this show, and we just asked Matt Slick to call in. So clearly, as far as, but, like, the point that I think he was trying to get to at the beginning of that was he's seen people booted for using a single word or, like, the example you gave was doubting the existence of the wage gap and being booted rather than being responded to.
That is definitely a conversation that I want to listen to a little more. People talking specifically about what you're talking about.
I'm capable of having a conversation with myself. How much do you want to...
But here's the thing, is
we
need to balance that. And I think that those are communities that might need to have a place where you don't want to talk about it and a place where it's okay to talk about it. But I don't think those people necessarily want to be in the same room with each other.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because it's okay to be different. It's okay to have different views. We have conservative viewers. And why? Because atheism is not a liberal position. It's just a position on whether or not God exists.
I was going to say, hey, everyone, Eric just invented safe spaces. So,
You're going to answer all of those for me. I'm not answering.
Yeah, okay. In the subject line of your hate emails about safe spaces, go ahead and include the name Jamie, and I'll deal with it. But no, basically that's what you're describing is like, okay, so there's a place where if you don't want to hear about this, you don't have to. And here's a place that you do. It's I think, a reaction to the existence of the internet and this idea that you can, it's almost like a sense of entitlement to someone's time and response. If I tweet at someone and they don't reply, oh, well, that's them choosing not to respond to me, as opposed to, actually, this person has 10,000 followers and whatever. Yeah. It's sort of like trying to tweet news stories at NBC. Like, they don't see that.
I actually am worried about the day when more emails come in than I can answer, because I do like to answer them thoughtfully
We need another
and with a lot of meat on the bone because
you can do
I
it.
Enjoy it.
All things are possible through Christ. You'll be fine.
Okay, that's the end of
That's the end of this show and all shows and our friendship and
so
and my tires because they're going to be slashed.